Elias gripped the corroded pipe, its algae-slick surface biting into his calloused fingers. He yanked it free. Gas hissed into the air, sharp, sour, foul. The stench hit hard. Metal, oil, the faint rot of something long dead. He swallowed against the bile rising in his throat, choking back a dry heave. No time for that now. A slow gurgle of wastewater groaned through the corroded drains. Dripping water reverberated off the walls, softening the surrounding stillness. Damn it. The part was in worse condition than he'd thought. His people wouldn't last the next dry season without a real fix. He turned the pipe over in his hands. Practically useless. Another failure. Another delay. Time was running out. Moving forward, he made his way to the road. Above him, the sky lay muted gray, thick with smoke and dust. A sickly glow washed the wreckage, casting skeletal shadows across the ruins. Then, a presence. The cold, calculated gaze of drones, before they were even visible. Their searchlights swept the ruins with eerie precision, scanning for anything warm-blooded. He'd studied their patterns, knew how to outmaneuver them, but today, something felt off. The nearest drone hesitated mid-sweep, recalibrated, scanned again. Elias froze. His grip tightened on the pipe. They're learning. Red searchlights slashed through the ruins. Too close. From his hiding place, beneath a tangle of rusted wires and collapsed scaffolding, Elias caught sight of something scrawled on a crumbling wall. The world before was a lie. The words, irregular and desperate, smeared across a faded mural. They unsettled him. He shifted his grip, preparing to move. But then his gaze snagged on the emblem etched into the pipe. Concentric circles, sharp intersecting lines. Precise, deliberate. Not a corporate stamp. Those were everywhere. Ghosts of companies that had promised futures they couldn't deliver. This was different, intentional. A design meant to convey something, not sell it. His fingers twitched, wanting to trace the edges. He'd seen this impulse before. The way people latched onto symbols, patterns, anything that hinted at meaning in the wreckage. They'd build whole belief systems around a scratched logo or a half-legible sign. And then they'd die, waiting for the salvation it promised. Elias shoved the pipe into his pack, metal and rust. That's all it was. The zipper caught. His fingers were trembling. Not now. He forced it closed and shouldered the pack. A thin, electric hum filled the air, then sharper, closer. A red beam swept closer to his position. Time to move, fast. His legs refused. For a moment, he was caught between curiosity and fear, wanting to push deeper, knowing the danger was already too close. Then the drone pivoted, a smooth, surgical motion. Its beam swept toward his cover. Elias's breath hitched. Instinct kicked in. He bolted through the ruins, boots skidding over debris. Stale air burned his lungs as he leaped a broken pipeline, sludge churning below. Behind him, the drone adjusted, adapting to his trajectory. It knew. Elias pushed harder, weaving through the labyrinth of rusted beams and shattered tanks, his pulse hammering in his ears. He didn't dare look back. Not today. With a final burst of speed, he ducked into a crumbling service tunnel as the searchlight grazed the entrance. He pressed himself against the damp wall, heart pounding. The tunnel held its breath with him. The drone's hum drifted past. Faded. Gone. Elias exhaled. The tunnel answered with dripping water and settling stone. the slow pulse of a place that had outlasted everything above it. One breath, two. The distant whir of machinery dissolved into the broken cityscape. Elias sagged into the wall, cold stone leaching through his jacket into bone. Another few seconds, and no, Pearl would be counting rations for one less. He cut the thought off mid-breath, slowed himself, in, out, counted the drips echoing somewhere deeper in the tunnel. The third breath stuttered before he forced it steady. Still alive, still upright. Drip, drip. He pushed away from the wall. His legs answered. Barely, but they held. The tunnel waited ahead, dark and still. 20 minutes to Eden's Vale. 20 minutes to find the words for what he didn't have. That the part was wrong. That the pump was still failing. That 3 days of dodging drones had bought him nothing but scrap. His boots found a rhythm on the damp stone. Left, right, left. There was always Kairos. The thought hit harder than the wall had. He'd been circling it for weeks, telling himself there were other ruins, other trades, other ways this ended. 3 more steps. Left, right, then another. There weren't. He'd checked, again and again. The math never changed. Water whispered somewhere ahead. He marked the sound without slowing. Distance, angle, volume. Filed it away. The air tasted of rust and old concrete. Kairos wouldn't want the pipe. Kairos would want them. Where they were. How they'd stayed hidden. How 17 people had survived this long without being noticed. His jaw locked. He forced it loose. He ducked and moved on. 3 paces, then 3 more. He'd seen what deals with Kairos became. The Miller Enclave, the Foundry, always gentle at first. Requests, adjustments, then the pressure, then nothing left but compliance and silence. 2 steps, 20 minutes to walk back and offer the same slow ending to people who trusted him. His hands were steady. That mattered. He could still shape the lie, still make it sound like a plan. The tunnel darkened. The cold sharpened. Maybe there was another door. Maybe he'd missed it. He didn't believe that, but he kept walking anyway. His footsteps faded into the dark as he kept walking. The air clung thick and stale, laced with rust. His shoulders brushed damp stone as he pressed on. Walls slick with decades of seepage. 23 paces from the rusted valve. Left, at the junction. Elias looked up at the marker pipe, bent at an angle too precise for any collapse. He stopped where the wall revealed nothing but shadow and crumbling stone. His fingers found the spot, pressing into what looked like broken masonry. The panel gave way. Behind it, a keypad, worn smooth by years of careful use. The sequence, the click, the door separated from the wall with a low groan, exhaling warm air into the tunnel's cold, dense with decades of filtered air and human presence. Stepping inside, Elias let the door seal behind him with a final thud. The air inside Eden's Vale sat thick with iron and rust, heavy from filters stretched past their limits. Elias felt the pressure change as the door sealed, that familiar compression, like the bunker itself was holding its breath. The pump's wheeze guided him down the corridor, worse than when he'd left. 3 days ago, it had stuttered every few minutes. Now the intervals were shorter, the wet rattle underneath more pronounced, the sound of a machine trying to move water that wasn't there. Luke knelt beside the pump housing, hands hovering over the panel without touching it, listening, hoping the system might tell him what was wrong. It wouldn't,
Intake valve.
Elias said, crossing to him.
Corroded through. Pumps cavitating, sucking air instead of water.
Luke exhaled and sat back.
Can you fix it?
Elias pulled the scavenged pipe from his pack and held it up. Copper, decent gauge, wrong decade. The pump coughed again, a wet, strangled sound. And in the silence after, he heard Pearl's chair creak. She was at the storage tank, watching the gauge mounted on its side. She'd claimed that post when they'd dropped to half rations, and the cup beside her elbow looked untouched. Same level as when he'd left.
It's not enough,
She said. Not a question. He set the pipe on the work table. The clang echoed off concrete walls.
Might buy us a few weeks. Maybe.
Another alarming cough from the pump. Luke flinched. Pearl didn't. Her fingers curled into her sleeves. The same white-knuckled grip she got every time she had to tell someone no.
Then what?
Elias moved to the gauge beside her. The old brass one he'd installed himself, not the dead digital panel mounted uselessly above it. The needle hovered just above the red line, trembling with each sputter from the pump. He could smell the sediment from here. Mineral and rust, the slow death of pipes older than any of them. He waited one beat too long, listening to the pump wheeze, before forcing the words out.
Kairos has parts.
He said.
Stockpiles.
The name landed like a stone in still water. Luke went rigid. Pearl's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away from the gauge.
Kairos doesn't trade.
Her voice was flat.
He takes. You know what he'd want for a valve assembly.
Elias did know. Access. Information. Eden's Veil had survived this long because no one who mattered knew it existed. Kairos would change that,
There are other rumors.
Luke said, quieter.
People talk about Aegis. Networks that still...
Fairy tales.
The words came out harder than he meant. Luke flinched, and Elias made himself unclench his jaw. The kid didn't know, hadn't been there when the Northside commune pooled everything they had to chase a signal that turned out to be a weather buoy on a dead loop. Hadn't seen what happened when the food ran out, and the signal kept broadcasting its empty promise. The pump groaned. Elias used the pause to flatten his voice.
I've seen what happens to people who chase ghosts instead of fixing what's in front of them. They stop fixing. Then they stop surviving.
The gauge needle dipped. Just a hair. Pearl tracked it the way a hunter tracks movement in grass.
How long?
Elias asked.
At current draw?
She finally looked at him. The light carved deep shadows under her eyes.
2 weeks. Maybe less if the pump seals go and we lose what's left in the tank.
Another cough. Another tremor in the needle. Elias picked up the pipe. Useless for repair, but maybe enough to open a conversation. Maybe enough to buy time while he figured out a real solution.
I'm going to Kairos.
Pearl didn't argue, didn't warn him again. She just turned back to the gauge, watching the needle hover between survival and empty. Luke stood.
Elias...
Stay with the pump. Do what you can.
He shouldered his pack. Luke stood there, waiting. For what? Elias didn't know. Something more, maybe. The kind of thing people said to each other before one of them walked into danger. He searched for it. The right words, the right gesture. Found nothing. That part of him had never been built. You couldn't miss what you'd never had.
I'll be back before the needle hits red.
He didn't promise. Promises were for people who controlled their own odds. Elias adjusted his pack, the pipe's weight settling against his spine. Behind him, the bunker door sealed with a soft hiss. Pearl wouldn't watch him go. She never did. Said goodbyes were bad luck. Luke would be back at the pump housing by now, hands finally on the panel, doing what he could with what they had. They'd survive without him. They always had, the weeks he was gone. That was the point. Build something that doesn't need you, and you're free to do what has to be done. The city flickered beyond Eden's veil, unstable and restless. Rain misted his face as he stepped into its restless hum. The financial district first. If any remnants of pre-collapse plumbing equipment still existed, they'd be buried there, among the shattered high-rises and flooded basements. A long shot, but his only shot before Kairos. He crossed broken streets, weaving through skeletal storefronts, and collapsed overpasses. The fog thickened as he moved west, swallowing the ruins in an evening gray. A glint caught his eye. He stopped, crouched, brushed away grime and shattered glass. Concentric circles, sharp intersecting lines, carved into the pavement, precise despite years of weathering. The same design etched into the pipe in his pack. His pulse quickened. He'd seen these before, scratched into walls, scored into metal panels, scattered through the ruins like breadcrumbs. Not random, not decay. Someone had left them behind, but not for him. The thought surfaced unbidden. These symbols were speaking to someone. He just wasn't the one meant to hear. Elias straightened, shook the thought loose. He had no time to decode mysteries. His people needed water, and he was running out of days. Whatever these markings meant, whatever story they told, it wasn't his. He turned west, toward the financial district, toward whatever fragile hope he could salvage from the bones of the old world. The concentric circles might hold answers for someone else. For Elias, survival was the only path forward.
And that's where we'll leave Elias, walking toward a deal he doesn't want to make, carrying a pipe marked with symbols he can't explain. If you've made it this far, thank you. Genuinely. These early chapters are finding their audience one listener at a time, and you being here matters more than you know. If you'd like to support the story, subscribing means you'll get the next chapter the moment it drops. And if you're feeling generous, buying me a coffee helps keep this project going while I write. No pressure either way. Showing up and listening is enough. Next time, the compass pulls Rowan into the financial district. Fog, shattered glass, and someone else moving through the ruins. That someone is Elias. Their first meeting doesn't go well. And while they're circling each other, Vespid's drones are circling them. The compass keeps pulsing. The ruins are waking up. Whatever's out there, it noticed. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in Chapter 3.